I just have to rant about this. So if you are considering GitHub Enterprise Cloud, consider not blocking everyone in your enterprise from creating their own personal repos to host things like, oh, I don't know, their internal dot files that are only applicable to the company. So one of the huge mistakes that the company that I'm working for has made that I have nothing to do about is they've decided to go with GitHub Enterprise to move everything from on-prem GitHub Enterprise into GitHub Enterprise Cloud under like one of 6 different organizations. This means that nobody in the company can use GitHub to manage their own private repos. And the justification for this is you should never have those. And I think that's very short-sighted. I think it's extremely short-sighted. They also tell you that you can, nearly get fired for using public GitHub internally, pulling down in a README, even if you did it in a README way, pulling down your own dot files and using them. And in my case, I have a GitHub repo dot files internally, and I'll show you how to do this in the beginner boost actually. I have, some dot files that are for work, and I have some dot files that are my general ones, and I pull those down in a read-only way. And I did another video about why you don't want to be making changes at work to that because technically your work owns it, even though it's really weird. But having a separate repo that's got my Zettelkasten, yeah, I have my own Zettelkasten, my own internal notes, my own things that I want to back up, that I want to maintain in Markdown, and I do that regularly, and that is not a violation of any kind of core architectural principle within the company. I'm not like forking some pirate, piece of software just so that, and then, promoting my own personal repo as a place to go get stuff, which by the way has happened. People within our company on the GitHub internal enterprise servers have regularly published links to their private repos so that the entire, even in documentation, official documentation, so people are going there to set up their Anaconda or their Kubernetes Klogin or whatever, and they basically decided to thumb their nose at the official stuff within the company. And so the justification for saying, nope, can't do that anymore. We don't want any more of you people posting your own personal repos and then documenting them so everyone can go become dependent on your personal thing and then have you leave the company, which actually happened. There was a guy who was really, really self-promotional, and he got everybody to use his version of stuff, even though usually he would copy the thing that was official, change a couple lines in it to his purposes, and then he would push his own stuff. By the way, if you are that person, if you're the cowboy pushing self-promotional stuff in your own personal repo that is forcing people to become dependent on you and your personal repo because you think that you want to be a technocrat and it's going to ensure your job's sustainability forever, you should be fired on the spot. And people have been. I've talked to vice presidents who have worked for years to rip out technocrats who do this kind of thing. It's a separate rant. I'm going to try to keep the rest of that for another day. So the reason that's important and relevant to this conversation is because it is the fear of that has caused in my company and potentially other companies to make a horrible decision, which is thou shalt not have GitHub repos of your own anymore, ever, in perpetuity. That's redundant. That's totally stupid. It's totally stupid. I mean, there's so many reasons that a person may want to have their own internal GitHub repo at work that's just work related. And for you to say you cannot have, in fact, in our case, they built this broken tool to try to create, you can't even create a GitHub repo by yourself. You have to go through their DevOps tool to create a GitHub repo at all. And it's totally broken right now, and I won't even get into it. And you have to go into there and build a thing, and then you get a repo, and then you have to pick the right name, and it has to go with your organization, and everybody can see it. You can never make it private. Do I have to tell you all the things wrong with that? If you are using GitHub, if you're leveraging GitOps within your company, then the most powerful thing to do is to enable GitOps for your engineers, for themselves. They should be able to use GitOps for themselves, even if it's just a personal tool that they're screwing around with on their, their Friday where they're doing learning or something. By not doing that, you are basically encouraging them to put work stuff in public repos, or sorry, get public GitHub private repos, which is even scarier. That's all.